Hello and welcome to English for You. I'm Seb.
I'm Nikki.
And today we're talking about our literature article for this month. It's called Ghost Boys and it takes place, or at least it begins, in
high school.
High school, yes. We're going to be talking a little bit about that in a minute. But Nikki, how was your experience in high school?
I didn't like my high school.
Okay.
Yes, because it was a lot of reading and exams and a lot of things like that. So I didn't really have fun. What about you?
Yeah, I didn't like doing the exams either. That was definitely one of the low points or the worst parts of being in high school for me. I did make some good friends though, so I did have some good times with my friends.
Keep in touch?
Actually, no. But I left high school 10 years ago now, and I've been living in other countries the whole time. So it's difficult to stay in touch. When we stay in touch with someone, we carry on talking to them for a long time. Okay, well, unfortunately, our story where it begins in high school doesn't start in a happy way. It's not a good experience that our main character is having in high school. But let's not talk about it too much in the intro. Let's move into our article now and get started.
Reading. Ghost Boys. Growing up can be difficult for many of us, but it's particularly true for Jerome Rogers. At home, he has to deal with the dangers of his poor neighborhood in Chicago, U.S. At middle school, he's an outcast. Few other students talk to him, and bullies often pick on him. Jerome spends lunch breaks hiding in the bathroom or cleaner's closet to avoid being bullied. Carlos makes things better for a while. He's a Mexican-American boy who has moved to Chicago from Texas. The two boys strike up a friendship after Jerome shows Carlos how to avoid the bullies. It turns out that Carlos has some tricks up his sleeve too. When some older boys try to beat them up, he uses a toy gun to scare them away. Carlos then gives Jerome the gun in the hope that it will keep him safe. Jerome has been told many times to be careful around the police. However, he forgets about those warnings a few days later when he takes the toy gun outside to play.
Okay, so our story begins like this. Growing up can be difficult for many of us, but it's particularly true for Jerome Rogers. Okay, right there we have our first vocab word, particularly. Particularly is an adverb we use when we have a very good example of something. Like the word especially, which you might already know, we use it when we want to say that something is very true in a particular case. So, with the article, we mean that while growing up can be very difficult for many of us, it's very, very difficult for Jerome Rogers. Let's look at an example sentence using particularly now. I'm not very good at any ball sports, but I'm particularly bad at football. So here what we're saying is, I'm not really good at any sports, but my worst sport is football. I'm very, very bad at football.
课文一开始就用了一个动名词当主词的句型说，成长的过程对于多数人来说都很艰难，但是对于 Jerome Rogers 来说更是。那 particularly 是副词，意思是特别、尤其 more than usual or more than others。那它的形容词是 particular, means that something certain or specific。我们也可以说 in particular 也是特别。For example, when we go to the store, the clerk might ask us, "Are you looking for anything in particular?" 就是你有特别在找什么吗？ And then the article says, at home, he has to deal with the dangers of his poor neighborhood in Chicago, U.S.
Right. So he lives in a very dangerous neighborhood, and that neighborhood has a lot of dangers in it. So danger is a noun, and it's something that could cause harm. For example, if you wanted to go hiking in the mountains, Some dangers you'll need to think about include cold weather, dehydration, that's not drinking enough water, and poisonous snakes. These are all things that could cause you harm. They could hurt you, and therefore they are also dangers. We could also say that they are dangerous, and that word which I just used is the adjective form of danger. The world is full of dangers, so there's a lot of useful phrases we can use with this word. For example, if you put someone in danger, then you do something that makes them be in a dangerous situation. So, for example, if you tied someone up on the tracks of a railroad, then, you'd be putting them in danger, right? Because trains go over railroads, and you don't want to be on a railroad when a train comes past. Meanwhile, if someone is a danger to themselves, that means there is a risk that they might hurt themselves. If they are a danger to other people, that means they might hurt others. It's not a person or a thing that's a danger. Sorry, it can be a person or a thing that is a danger. But in our example, we're looking at a thing. Let's take a look. Wildfires are common in the summer in Australia. The high heat and dry weather are the causes of this danger.
之后课文又接着说，这个男孩必须要 deal with 处理这个他住在这个地区所要面对的危险。Danger 是名词，意思就是危险或是风险，像是 risk 或是 threat 都有一点这个意思。We can say someone is in danger. We can also say that someone is out of danger. 他就是已经没有危险了。那它的形容词是 dangerous, 危险的。
The next word we see is neighborhood. Now, neighborhood is a noun, and we can describe it as a small area within a city or a town. Neighborhoods are official and often have their own small government or council that is in charge of them. For example, we could say that Tianmu in Taipei is a neighborhood. Often, you'll hear people talking about good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. A good neighborhood is a neighborhood that is safe, clean, and orderly. Meanwhile, a bad neighborhood has lots of crime and is dangerous. There are a lot of dangers. Another name for a bad neighborhood is a rough neighborhood. Taipei, for example, doesn't really have any bad neighborhoods, or at least in my opinion. Let's look at an example sentence of neighborhood now. Jamie does a little exercise by running around his neighborhood a few times a week.
Neighborhood 是名词，街坊或者是街区，那其实指的就是你平常住的地方附近的那一带。那如果我们说一个地方是 good neighborhood 的话，可能就是那边很漂亮，或者是治安很好。那如果我们说是 bad neighborhood 的话，可能就是那边治安不太好。
Exactly. So he's living in a very rough neighborhood. There's a lot of dangers there, and it seems that that's not his only problem. The article goes on, at middle school, he's an outcast. Okay, so just now we were talking about being in high school, right? He's actually in middle school. So in different countries, in the UK, we don't have middle school so much. We just have elementary and high school, or we call it primary school in high school. But Jerome is in a system like Taiwan's where you have middle school, or you call it junior high school. So that's the kind of age that Jerome is.
那在中学的时候 Jerome 是一个 outcast。Outcast 是名词，意思指的是被排挤的人。Someone who's not accepted by the people around them.
Right, exactly. Cast or cast actually means to throw something. So if you're thrown out of a group, then you are an outcast. The article goes on, few other students talk to him, and bullies often pick on him.
很少同学会去跟他讲话，而且还有就是 bullies 那些恶霸，还会常常找他麻烦。Pick on somebody 意思就是说，是一个片语，意思就是说找茬或者是欺负别人的意思。那如果我们看到一个很大只的人，他在欺负一个很小只的人，那我们就可以说 Why don't you go and pick on someone your own size?
Exactly.
就是说你不要以大欺小，去找一个跟你一样大只的人打。And then the article says Jerome spends lunch breaks hiding in the bathroom or cleaner's closet to avoid being bullied. 那他常常就会在吃饭午休的时间躲在厕所或是扫具柜，然后来就是怕别人欺负他。
That's very sad, actually, that he has to spend a lot of time on his own to feel safe. There is some good news in the story. It says Carlos makes things better for a while. Okay, so we have a new character here, Carlos.
And the article says Carlos, he's a Mexican-American boy who has moved to Chicago from Texas.
So by Mexican-American, we could mean that maybe Carlos's parents are from Mexico and he is from the United States, or maybe he could have been born in Mexico and moved to the United States. So either way, he is an American now, but he has a Mexican origin. The story continues. The two boys strike up a friendship after Jerome shows Carlos how to avoid the bullies.
那他们两个呢，就开启 strike up 一个友谊。Strike up means that to start a relationship or conversation with someone.
Exactly. So they strike up a friendship. Now, a friendship is a relationship between friends. So we can tell from that it's a noun. If you hang out with someone, they make you laugh, and you have similar interests, you might say that you have a friendship with them. If it's a very good friendship, you could say you have a close friendship. Unfortunately, not all friendships last forever. When people slowly stop being friends because they move to another city or stop having the same interests, we could say that they drift apart.
Just like you and your high school.
Yes, exactly. The friends from high school that I don't speak to anymore, we've drifted apart. However, if we wanted to become friends again, we could rekindle our friendship. To rekindle means to set something on fire again. So it's kind of create a little bit more energy, you know? So there's other kinds of friendships too. Lasting friendships, on the other hand, are friendships that last a very long time. So friendships that haven't ended. Okay, let's look at an example of that usage. Sam met Mike when he was 4, and they started a lasting friendship that continued for the rest of their lives.
Friendship 是名词，友情或者是朋友之间的感情。那这个 suffix ship 的它是一种头衔或者是地位，甚至是关系。For example, we say partnership 合作关系，或者是 citizenship 公民身份。Then the article continues saying, it turns out that Carlos has some tricks up his sleeves too.
Okay, so what is the meaning of that phrase, to have
something up one's sleeve? 意思就是说他暗中藏有一手的意思。
Okay, so Jerome and Carlos are friends, and it gives us an example now of how Carlos is showing Jerome a few extra tricks to make his life easier. When some older boys try to beat them up, he uses a toy gun to scare them away. So he there is Carlos. Carlos uses a toy gun to scare them away. Now, it's not something we can actually recommend, but it seems that Carlos is trying to get them out of a very difficult situation. That's because the bullies want to beat them up. Now, beat is a verb, and when you beat someone, you hit them to cause them harm. Exactly. Please don't actually hit me. You can beat someone with your fists or using an object. So like a bat or a stick. Exactly. So if Nikki had a stick right now, she could beat me into the ground.
Yes.
So we see here that the older boys want to attack Jerome and Carlos, and they want to hurt them. You'll notice that in the article, we actually used beat as part of a phrasal verb. So beat someone up. When you beat someone up, you hit someone lots and lots of times so that they are very hurt. There's never a good reason for hurting someone, but if you beat an egg, then that's not a problem. That's because when you beat an egg, you mix eggs together. So it's a slightly different meaning. Let's look at an example sentence now. The policewoman arrested a man when she saw him beating a dog. That would be a good reason to arrest someone.
Beat 是动词，那它在这边指的就是殴打。 那我们会说 beat somebody up， 意思就是把一个人暴打、痛打。那 beat 它还有另外一个意思是战胜 defeat 的意思。那例句说到这名女警她看到一名男子在殴打一只狗的时候将他逮捕。And the article says Carlos then gives Jerome the gun in the hope that it will keep him safe. And the hope that 意思是希望，那在这边 hope 後面加 that 的话会接一个完整的子句，那就是课文里面的用法。类似的句型还有 in the hope of， 一样的意思，但是 of 后面会接一个名词或是动名词片语。例句说 The man just put up some fences in hope of keeping wild animals away from his garden.
Okay, so back to the article. Jerome has been told many times to be careful around the police.
And the article says, however, he forgets about those warnings a few days later when he takes the toy gun outside to play.
Right, he forgets about those warnings. Now, a warning is a noun, and it's something that we say when we want to tell someone that something bad might happen to them. For example, if you're misbehaving in class, your teacher might give you a warning. Something like, if you don't stop talking, I'll give you extra homework. At this point, she's not actually going to give you extra homework. That's just a warning. It means that if you carry on, she will give you the extra homework. If the Weather Channel gives people a warning about a typhoon, it doesn't mean that there is a typhoon right now, but it means that there might be one arriving soon. Let's look at an example of warning now. Most cigarette packets have a warning on them about the bad effects of smoking.
那然而呢 Jerome 在几天后就忘记了这个警告 warning 在这边指的是一个名词警告或是提醒 an alert 那它的动词呢就是 warn 也是警告的意思。
Right, yeah. So we're actually coming to a very important part in the story, but we're going to pause here and come back to it tomorrow. We're going to look at our For You chat question now. And then, yeah, tomorrow we will continue with our story.
Yes.
For You chat.
Okay, so this I think is a good For You chat question for all of our listeners today. If you notice people getting bullied in school, what can you do to stop it?
I think the most efficient way just to tell the teacher. To let the teacher deal with it because there's nothing you can really do. Like you don't want to get into the fight, you don't want to make it worse. So I think you can just go straight to the teacher.
I think, well, yeah, I think it's very good to go to the teacher because the teacher is the person who can kind of find a solution the easiest. Obviously, if there is something very big happening, you know, if it's not just, well, even if it's just name calling, actually, even if it's something small, I think you can stand up for the person who's getting bullied. If they're being called a nasty name, for example, you can say, you know, hey, that's not funny, or like something like that. Just let the bully know that what they're doing is not okay. So it's a difficult thing to do because none of us want to get bullied. But I think we also need to think about how the person who is being bullied might feel as well at the same time. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for our For You chat question and for the first day of our story. We'll be rejoining Jerome in day 2, but for now, it's time to say goodbye. So, see you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Ghost Boys. Growing up can be difficult for many of us, but it's particularly true for Jerome Rogers. At home, he has to deal with the dangers of his poor neighborhood in Chicago, U.S. At middle school, he's an outcast. Few other students talk to him, and bullies often pick on him. Jerome spends lunch breaks hiding in the bathroom or cleaner's closet to avoid being bullied. Carlos makes things better for a while. He's a Mexican-American boy who has moved to Chicago from Texas. The two boys strike up a friendship after Jerome shows Carlos how to avoid the bullies. It turns out that Carlos has some tricks up his sleeve too. When some older boys try to beat them up, he uses a toy gun to scare them away. Carlos then gives Jerome the gun in the hope that it will keep him safe. Jerome has been told many times to be careful around the police. However, he forgets about those warnings a few days later when he takes the toy gun outside to play.
Vocabulary Review.
Particularly. I like most fruits, but particularly oranges. They're my favorite. Danger. Smoking causes many dangers to your health. Neighborhood. Many nice people live in my neighborhood, and sometimes I see them at the market. Friendship. Henry and Jacob have had a good friendship since they were 3 years old. Beat. In some countries, it is legal for teachers to beat students as punishment. Warning. The man was about to cross the road during the red light, so I shouted a warning.
字汇小补帖
Outcast. Bully.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net